Okay, so that worked. It's the lighting behind me. Let's take a breath together. So today we're talking about gratitude beyond gifts. Not gratitude after gifts, not gratitude for gifts, but gratitude beyond gifts. Gratitude beyond the form. Gratitude beyond the getting. Which really, that little thing that we say that it is done unto us as we believe is really what we're talking about. This thing of reciprocity. And as Marilyn was singing, what came to me was, what would our lives be like if we really grasp, not just had an idea about, but really got that everything a heart could ever desire has always existed, that we were born into it as a place where it unfolds. That really it's not about asking for something to happen. It's not asking to get something. It's knowing that the desire of our hearts is the activity of life unfolding as us. And all we really have to do is pay attention and say yes. To pay attention and say yes. But we live in this human realm where if I want something, I have to go get it. If I want something for Christmas, I make a list, and I give that list to someone, and they go shopping, and hopefully they get what's on the list. Hopefully. But what if our spiritual list isn't in our human mind, but it's the activity of life itself wanting to unfold itself as us? That's what we teach. But it's not so easy to grasp. It's not so easy to get our arms around, and it's certainly not easy to get our human heads around. That everything that comes up as a desire in my being is already fully present. It is eternal. It was here before my physical form got here. It will be here after my physical form is gone, because life itself is infinite possibility, pure potentiality. That creation is always pregnant. Right? That we are always pregnant. Something is always gestating in us, looking for a place to birth. And that's what this thing called desire brings us to. It's a challenging thought in this human realm. At least it is for me. Maybe it's not for you. Maybe you wake up and go to sleep every day in absolute unshakable conviction. I don't. It's a process of remembering and forgetting and forgetting and remembering. My dear friend, the late Reverend Jeff Anderson, used to say that it's, he thinks of it as a balance beam. And that it's not about staying on the balance beam all the time. Because nobody stays on the balance beam all the time. Even our greatest gymnasts, they fall off. Right? That's why we practice. Right? And so this thing of spiritual walk, of spiritual practice, if we think about it as a balance beam, perhaps it's more about recognizing when we fall off and using the tools to quickly get back on than trying to stay. Because typically what happens is when we set up this standard of I have to stay on the balance beam, we have a premeditated guilt and shame thing happening. Because as soon as I fall off, instead of focusing that I fell off and how to get back on, I have to spend a certain amount of time thinking what a piece of garbage I am because I fell off in the first place, and how inadequate I am that, I'm a minister and I can't even walk this talk, blah, 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 blah. Maybe it's just me. I can tell by some eyeballs in the room it's not just me. Right? What if we understand that falling off is part of the learning, and it's okay? What if we understood that evolution is life unfolding? How do we be grateful for everything? See, that's a pretty all-inclusive word. I'm sure many, if not most of you, are aware of the Ahmaud Arbery case that just unfolded in Brunswick, Georgia. Young African-American man who was murdered by 3 white-skinned men. And when the verdict came in, guilty, 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 I had a moment of gratitude, and right behind it came, what exactly are you grateful for? And I had to take myself to a spiritual exploration, because I certainly was not grateful on any level that Ahmaud Arbery was murdered. I wasn't grateful that 3 white men murdered him. I wasn't grateful that 12 jurors had to go through the process of seeing everything that happened. And I know as a former law enforcement officer in EMT, you can't get rid of those images. I wasn't grateful that those 12 people and everyone in that courtroom is now carrying the impact of this act. I wasn't grateful for any of that. And so I had to go to prayer. It's like, what am I really grateful for? Am I grateful for what in the human realm felt like justice, and in some part of me, if I'm being honest, felt like retribution? Am I really grateful for retribution? And if I look at my own life and all of the things that I was never held accountable for, I'm not serving myself up and saying, hey, these are things that I never got caught for. Hold me accountable now. So am I really grateful for that? And where I finally came to was what I was really grateful for was a shift in consciousness. Because it took a shift in consciousness for this whole thing to play out. Because when it first happened, it was summarily dismissed, brushed under the rug. Literally, it was documented. There's nothing here to see. There's nothing here to see. Nothing happened that we need to deal with. And there was a shift in consciousness that unfolded, that demanded attention. There was a shift in consciousness of 11 white-skinned jurors. In the South. And trust me when I tell you, being from the South, there was a shift in consciousness for that to play out the way it did. And I had to take myself to accountability within myself. Was I living in a sense of gratitude during the trial? Was I believing that shift in consciousness was already present, or was I hoping and wishing for it? Because faith is the substance of things not seen. And if I have to see it to believe in it, I don't really believe in it. What I believe in is the form, not in the consciousness that creates the form, not in the substance that shows up as form. And if I'm telling the truth, which I have a tendency to do, I was doing a lot of hoping. I was doing a lot of default praying to the God outside of me that I grew up with. And I take myself to account on that. Because this thing of reciprocity, this thing of gratitude, is knowing, not knowing about, right? We know about up here. But when we move it from our head to embodiment, we know that everything already is already here. It's not an easy thing to do. If it were easy, we would have to knock the walls out and add a block to our building. It's not easy to do. It's not easy to let go of a Savior outside of us and stand in absolute responsibility, for it is done unto me as I believe. Because I was raised in a world, in a culture that says I get to blame you. Right? Everything that has gone sideways in my life is somebody's fault, and it's not me. Accountability heals. And so I'm grateful for accountability. I'm grateful for teachings that continuously awaken me to what is actually operating in me that is in the way of what I actually am. Let me say that again. What is actually operating in me in the way of what I actually am. Because I can only experience what I actually am to the degree that I'm willing to embody it. We can think about it. Marilyn and I rehearsed yesterday, and we were having a conversation afterwards that, acknowledging that most of the noise in our head is thinking about our thoughts. It's not our actual thoughts. It's static. And that when we get to our actual thoughts, it's that fork in the road. I can either own that, wow, this is what I'm thinking, or I can blame society for making me think that. That's what they taught me. I'm only thinking it because that's what I was taught to think, blah, blah, And the more noise it is, the late Bishop John Shelby Spong. I love that man. I still love that man. He was criticized for stepping out of the lane that his religion put him in. And he met that with an awareness, as he said, that the majority of the noise comes from the shallow end of the pool. His words. I completely agree with him. Are we willing to recognize when we're in the shallow end of the pool? See, it's easy. It's easy to be in the balcony and look down at the pool and see who's making the noise. It's a whole nother thing to own that I'm in the balcony and my arrogance making just as much noise because consciously I'm in the shallow end of the pool. Are we willing to do that? Are we willing to live in that level of gratitude and be grateful for the awareness, to be grateful for every messy moment on the journey? Dell and I were talking before. Interestingly enough, we had opportunity to practice it, that every oops is just an aha waiting to happen. Mistakes happen. It's how evolution unfolds. You know, when they were building the airplane, they didn't just go, oh, airplane, poof. That's not how it happened. There's a lot of trial and error. And will we be grateful for the process of the trial and error? Will we be grateful for the grace that allows us to grow? And then will we extend that to one another? In this human realm, I think that is best referred to as forgiveness. In the spiritual realm, I don't think the infinite knows one thing about forgiveness, because that would require it to first condemn. And I don't think it does. It just loves. It just loves. It extends grace. It creates out of itself, by itself, to be itself. And then in order to expand its experience of itself, it completely lets go. That's what we call free will. And how interesting it is that I am good celebrating my free will when it serves me, but when your free will does not serve me, no. Somehow I make that something different than the exact same free will I have. Will we be grateful for every messy moment? Will we dare to love those who hate? Will we dare to literally embody the thing we are created out of and love everything and everybody the same way we are loved? When you go outside, you have never once experienced the sun going, you know, Rafe, I was going to shine on you today, but you did that thing yesterday, so no sunshine for you. Ever. And if we're being really honest, some of us have done some pretty atrocious things in life, whether anybody else knows about them or not. Sometimes it's just in our own mind, but we still played it out in our mind. And yet the sun continues to shine just as brightly on us as everybody else. I dare you to find the place within you that will love that radically, that will pray for those who despitefully use you. Even if it starts off with, God bless that sorry, fill in the blank. You got to start somewhere, right? Start in honesty. And pray, as Emma Curtis Hopkins taught us, to pray for everything you want to be manifest in everybody else first. First. That's a tall order. Right? And I'm going to close with this. Every hallway takes us to where we're supposed to be. And some of those hallways are dark, and some of them are well lit. And some of the doors off of those hallways have doorknobs that are lit up and easy to find. And I invite you to consider that some of the greatest gifts that you will ever unfold in your life are at the very end of the darkest, most narrow hallway. And there's no doorknob, but there's a door. And if we will just keep going, if we will just find within us the belief that there is no darkness, that's just what we're experiencing, that life is continuing to unfold even when it feels the darkest, and to keep going, and then when you come to that impasse, to lean in, and that the leaning on that door opens it. And if you get scared, sit down in the hallway. Take a break. Sit down. Rest. Regroup. Understand that the divine is not limited by experience. It's not limited by appearance. That principle is never bounded by precedent. And just because the last hallway took you to another dark hallway doesn't mean this one will. But it does mean life is unfolding exactly as you believe it. And if you want light in your hallway, see it there. See your hallway lit up. See your path bright. But understand that sometimes the very floor of the hallway is being laid under your feet as you step. Because life cannot unfold as you any faster than you're willing to unfold. It doesn't drag you, it invites you. It invites you. Reciprocity is exactly that. And spiritual reciprocity is giving before you get informed. It is the activity of giving, knowing that what you give is reciprocal. And so the Son gives, and growth happens. Right? Rain falls, evaporation happens. We give because life gives to us, and we give back to life. That's how it works. If you turn off the tap, it doesn't turn off the flow of life. It just turns off your experience of it. Let's take this into prayer. And so what I know, what I allow myself to recognize is the wholeness, the oneness, the integrity of life itself. This eternal beingness, this infinite intelligence, this absolute abundance, creation itself, always pregnant with possibility, always birthing newness, always giving of itself to itself, to expand itself. And as it expands, it creates. This is reciprocity. And knowing that I am an integral, unreplaceable, never to be repeated expression of a desire in the heart of the infinite. I know that I am one with that. I know that my life is the activity of divine reciprocity. And I know what is true of me is true of all. And so all life is reciprocity in action. And so I speak this morning, claiming, affirming, demanding a realization in consciousness of the reality, that absolute reality of reciprocity in, through, and as each expression of life. I speak a word claiming and affirming that consciousness is unfolding at the level of not only embrace but celebration, that it is done unto us as we believe, and so we choose to believe the truth of our being, that we are divine emanations of the one infinite presence. And we live that truth. We live the reciprocity of spiritual truth. We live the principle of reciprocity. We live in a state, in a being of gratitude for every messy moment of this beautiful journey. And we say yes to going down whatever hallway life unfolds in front of us, to embracing the journey as creation unfolding itself as us, an embrace of the intricacy and necessity of each in the whole. We live in a gratitude for that. A gratitude that is beyond human understanding. A gratitude beyond the necessity of form. A gratitude that lives in the wholeness and the integrity of life itself. And so it is from this gratitude that turns every messy moment into a message. Every ouch into a hallelujah. Every oops into an aha. That I release. And I let it go, knowing that it's already done.